just want to discuss briefly with you. A lot of people wonder why bad things happen to good people. They want to know why this earth, if it was created by God so well, what happened to it. And to get into a very, not the full explanation of it, but to really give you the genesis of it, the origins of it, it goes back to a love triangle. A lot of people don't realize that, but the first love triangle we find taking place in Genesis chapter 2, and especially Genesis chapter 3. And that love triangle involves God, Adam, and Eve. And what happened is that God created Adam and blessed him and said he was good. And the same thing with Eve, took a part of his body and made and fashioned the woman for him, Eve. But what happened is they were created innocent. They weren't created holy. In other words, completely 100% forever committed to God. And they didn't have a sin nature. They weren't trying to pull their own way and be their own gods. They were innocent. They were untested. Well, what happened is there was a test that came on. And if we passed the test, we would be holy and with God and in peace and in love and everything else. And this earth would be a wonderful place for all eternity. If we fail the test, especially Adam's the representative here for the human race. He's the one that carries the seed that goes on to all generations. If he fails, then we all fail, and then we need a redeemer. And so what happens, and it's kind of interesting because Satan, Lucifer, who was put down here on the earth and allowed to roam on the earth, takes up the place in the story of a serpent. Now the serpent is not a snake slithering around. That's after the curse. That's after the judgment of God upon it. It was probably some majestic beast, and it came up to Eve and it tempted her. It says in Genesis chapter 3, verse 6, "And when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and it was pleasant to the eyes, and a tree to be desired to make one wise, she took of the fruit thereof and did eat." So here's where the love triangle comes in. She was not supposed to do that, but she did. The temptation from Satan was not to Adam. No, he knew he wasn't going to get to Adam because Adam was really committed solid to God, but to Eve, because Eve was going to be his weakness. And all of us in our lives have a weakness, something that Satan uses to get to us. Okay, it's not always a direct attack on us. Sometimes he goes around and gets someone close to us. In this case, it was Eve. So we have a love triangle here because now Eve, it says here, and gave also to her husband with her, and he did eat. So what happened is once she ate and broke God's law and became a sinful creature, had a sin nature, she offers it to Adam. Now Adam's in the triangle here. He's going to make a choice. Do I love God or do I love Eve? Which one am I got to choose one way or the other. And of course he chose poorly. Tragically, he chose Eve. And of course, if you back that all up, the reason is that when God created everything, and he had this perfect garden, and he was naming the creatures that were created in pairs, he realized that he didn't have someone close to him, some intimacy. And so God said, you know what, we need to create a helpmeet for him. And they said that in chapter 2, verse 18 of Genesis. And the Lord said, "It is not good that the man should be alone. I will make him an helpmeet for him." And it became that helper, that intimate partner that ended up being the downfall of Adam. Okay? So Adam was not tempted by the serpent. He wasn't tempted by the fruit. He wasn't tempted by, that was Eve's deal. He was tempted by Eve. A love triangle, and he had to choose, and he chose poorly. Now, I was reminded by our pastor last night that it was a false binary. In other words, really, if he would have chose God right at the very beginning, God would have still sent Christ to this earth to die for Eve, and she could have been redeemed, and everything could have got back together real quick. It was all there. I mean, God could have done all that. But it was a false one. In other words, that's what happens with us. Satan always makes it look like we have this magnificent or horrible, I guess, decision to make. Do I choose God or do I choose, my children or my parents or my spouse or this person or my job or this? It's a false binary that we're forced to make, or we feel pressured to make. Always choose God. Always choose God, and He sets everything else in order. And so that's my suggestion, and that's, it's coming from the heart, is that we all need to learn to trust God more and more and more and grow in the grace of God. Trust His word, love Him, and Jesus said, if you love me, keep my commandments. That's how you prove your love toward God. you keep the commandments. I don't keep the commandments to get saved because I can't. Nobody can. That's why we need a redeemer. But after salvation, I need to grow and start keeping up, and growing closer and closer to God, and proving my love to Him and showing my love to Him. It should be a natural desire of Christians to grow like that. Because, as we've seen, when you choose poorly in a love triangle, eternity hangs in the balance.